Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of What on Flat Earth, the special edition of What on Earth podcast, where me and Tika dive deep into debunking conspiracy theories. And I want to show you some models and explain you how they work according to Flat Earth. And I grouped it to three very basic ideas, which are explainable by spherical Earth, and they are trying to prove it by flat Earth. And one of them are seasons. Like, how do we have seasons on flat Earth? Because if you have sun and the moon, if you dare to open the document that I prepared for this episode, Tika,
Yes,
you
I'm
will
here.
see this beautiful image of Flat Earth University about season.
It looks so
And
official. Like, if you don't know much about science, you could. I can believe this. Yeah, it
yeah,
looks so good.
scary. So you see that they have this three different trajectory of the sun. So there are three different paths. The one in June 21st, you see the yellow one, it's like the closest to the North Pole. Then you have March and September, the red one, and then December, which is the orange. We will include all those visuals on our socials, so you can, of course, look through them. And this is where the sun's supposed to travel from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. And this is how you have, this is at least this is how I understood that they explain seasons. My one big problem for this model is that the inner path, given that the sun is, taking the same amount of time, would take less time than the outer one, which would mean that summer should have shorter days than winter, right?
Yeah, but it
And it's
says.
not.
But it says in the figure slower sun and faster sun somehow.
But it's also, we know that it's not true because we can measure the path of sun, like 4 minutes, like 4 minutes takes 1 degree and whatever.
Yeah.
So like we know that the sun magically doesn't speed up when it's summer it doesn't slow down when it's summer and doesn't speed up when it's winter. So this is my already a big problem with explanation of seasons.
But it would also mean the sun moving. The sun is huge. Like,
Yeah.
how would it speed up and slow down so fast?
I mean, you can technically say that their observation is that the sun traverses. So, their observation is sun travels. So let's start there, right? So like if we want to give them the benefit of the doubt and approach it from their perspective, that their observation is the sun travels across the sky and the earth is flat, like according to their model, which they show in this picture.
Yeah.
The R of the circle is different in June than in December. And we know from observation that it's not true that it speeds up. It doesn't speed up. Then it just doesn't glue itself, right? It doesn't make sense.
No,
So
but
it's principally
I'm
wrong.
just thinking like movement of mass. So if we assume the sun is moving, it's a huge mass to speed up and slow down in
Yes.
its movement. Like
How?
Yeah.
And also like what makes it faster and what makes it slower.
Yeah.
There has to be a cause of like change in velocity.
Yeah. Interesting take. There's much to discuss.
Yes. Let's move on to a second visual where we have a day and night. So it's shown that, observation, and that's, observation which also apparently flat earthers are agreeing on because they show it on the picture, that half of the planet is always covered in darkness and the other half of the planet is always bright, right? And in this picture that they show us, I have a big problem of like how the light would work. Because if you light a simple torch on top of your desk, you will create a circle. So why now all of the sudden there's like this line which goes through the planet, which makes it dark.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah. It's like
you know what I mean?
Light is suddenly not diffuse anymore
Light
at some point.
Light all of the sudden in this model has a different path in different directions.
Yeah, it behaves differently than we experience on a daily basis.
Yeah. Like, even if we give, again, benefit of the doubt to this model, take a torch, light it on your desk, on your flat desk, it will create a circle. Unless you restrain it from one side, then you can have semicircle, but something has to restrain it. And my question is, what restrains the light?
Yeah.
And then another question for flat earthers, if there are any amongst our listeners, probably there are. Hopefully there are, because I'm craving knowledge now.
I want to talk to one of
I really want
to a flat
talk
earther
with
and
one.
just see where we agree, because that is always my
Yeah.
my way of discussing. But like, where does it come from, this belief?
Yeah.
Where did they hear from it? How did they get to it?
Yeah. But going back to my many questions which I had after reading, is like, why observation of everyday life is again not explaining the model. We sometimes see the moon and the sun at the same time, right? We see it in morning skies where we have a sunrise and there's a still moon present. It's
Definitely.
impossible. It's impossible given their model. It's impossible.
So what is it then? Is it not the moon?
I don't know. Maybe it's a, government spaceship. I
And
don't know.
to trick us all into thinking the Earth is round?
It could be. I really don't know. Then also how people, flat earthers, explain lunar eclipse, because I could not find compelling explanation for that. Where does it hide? Like, does it go behind the table, or how does it work? The lunar eclipse.
The same thing, blocking the light. Has to be.
Yeah. And then if you see all the videos that I was watching, they always explain one phenomenon after another. They never overimpose these 2 seasons plus day and night together, because it would not make sense. Like, it would not explain these 2 observations at the same time. Because if the sun is shining and and moving, and then it changes the speed, it would also influence like day and night. It just doesn't make sense, like, together.
Yeah.
As one model. If you overlap the view of the day and night with the poster which they post about seasons, it doesn't work. I mean, besides that it actually doesn't work, it also doesn't work for them. And then the third thing which I would like to touch upon is the very famous Coriolis effect, right? Which would again impact, like we say, it's direct conclusion of Earth being spherical and spinning. And they explain it differently. That I don't want to, right now say something stupid and then open the floor for discussion that I didn't understand it. But as far as I understood it from the description, is that the sun influences the temperature and air and currents in the way that, it creates this Coriolis pattern. But it's the sun, it's not the spinning.
Okay, interesting. So do you want me to explain the Coriolis effect for
yes,
the
you can
listeners?
yes,
So,
please do.
We see that the top side, so the waves in the
Northern hemisphere.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the best explanation for this. But what we see on Earth is this pattern where the Earth moves, twists counterclockwise, and therefore we see these currents on the northern hemisphere created to the left, to the southern hemisphere to the right, because of this twisting movement action. And this impacts a lot of things for climate, for example, the ocean currents and the wind currents. Moving in 3 different cells, because in the northern hemisphere you have like from 0 to 31 air cell because of this effect, because of the twist to the left, and then after 30 degrees north it's fully bent and then a new cell starts. And we'll explain this later in a full episode, but yeah.
So Coriolis effect is something which actually makes sense only if you consider Earth a rotating sphere, right? Because the circulating air is deflected towards the right on the northern hemisphere and towards the left in the southern hemisphere.
Said it the other way around. Yeah.
Simple terms. And then again, they try to explain it by the movement of the sun, but again, okay, it might, and generally magnetism. They also they absolutely love idea of magnetism in flat Earth societies. Like they explain electromagnetic by electromagnetism everything, like everything which they cannot conclude on spherical. There's like electromagnetism, charges, static electricity, and stuff like this. It's prevailing. You see it everywhere. But go back to the Coriolis effect. Again, I have a problem with their model, which goes around the sun, let's say, like the sun is the cause of the Coriolis effect. Because if you tell me that the sun has different orbits in case of seasons, this would also imply that those air currents and the winds, the permanent winds we have pattern fluctuates also according to seasons, which we don't see.
Yeah, so there's the jet stream, right? The North Pole jet stream.
Exactly. So they are contradictory, like separately in pieces. If you look just at the day and night, just at the season, just at the Coriolis effect, it might make sense if you really want it, right? It might.
Yeah.
But if you overimpose it, those three pieces of puzzles, they are mismatched because they are contradicting each other. So like if the seasons are changing because the sun position is changing on the plane, then the Coriolis effect cannot be explained by this.
Yeah, because then it would be different all the time, which it's not.
Yeah,
which we can measure, it's not.
We would have seasonal changes of the Coriolis, like air currents. It would just not make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and you can go down the rabbit hole about the gravity explanation when they try to explain by density. There's also this very famous Sydney-Santiago flight argument that if you have a flat Earth, the Sydney to Santiago flight would be too long for any commercial flight to take, and they argue that they're known. And I'm like, people take it every day. There are flights like this. It exists. And it exists because we have a sphere, so they, instead of flying right to left, they fly behind the globe.
Yeah.
It's 14.5 hours flight. I went that deep that I just literally found this flight.
You're committed.
I was committed. I wanted to understand. I think this is very important to not mock and make fun of them, even though the first impulse is just to ridicule it. But it's kind of interesting to see how they react to scientific debates. And I found very nice video with a guy, a YouTube guy that I also really like, Professor Dave Explains. I will also link you to this channel. But this guy at some point went down the rabbit hole with Flat Earth eventually. And then they tried it, the Flat Earth Society kind of took over on him to debunk him. So he was trying to have a scientific conversation. He was trying to use, arguments, and he was trying to show it through scientific methods. And these guys were just making fun of him, oh yeah, hey, I'm so smart. Of course he's gonna throw gravity into it. And I was like, okay, but what is your argument? It's just pure mockery from their side and not necessarily scientific approach from the Flat Earth Society. Which I was surprised because I thought that if you're trying to convince people that the Earth is flat, you would have some kind of compelling arguments besides just mockery of the scientific community.
Yeah, a lot of theory, very little actually scientific.
And here we go, Tika. Thank you for saying a lot of theory. Now that's fantastic timing. And I love that you said that because now I can rant about scientific methods. And when people say theory, they actually don't mean theory. Because I think it's very much needed to right now explain how science proves things and how we learn how to learn. So how do we do science? So I thought that I would just tell you about observation, hypothesis, and difference between theory and law. You have observations, which can be, of course, just like descriptive observations, like going back to the sailors. We observe that ships on the horizon appear from the sail down.
Yeah, it's using your senses or some machine or instrument to heighten your senses for certain
So you
topics.
collect the data using your senses or other instruments, but these are observation. This room is hot. This room is cold. My tea is hot.
That's descriptive, as you said.
Descriptive, yeah. Then you have hypothesis, and this is like explanation of observations using senses or collectible data. Or like in my case of my PhD, the creep is a residue of lunar magma ocean, which was created through fractional crystallization. Something which you explain the observation using the data. And then, of course, you have the hypothesis, and now you need to do experiments to test it. So you gather empirical evidences to confirm or refute.
Yeah, and it's very empirical just means found, right? Or
empirical, it's like provable. Empirical evidence is also like information through direct observation or experimentation.
Yeah.
And it's generally used to confirm or disprove the hypothesis. It's also quite important when you create experiments, and I can talk about it a lot because my PhD was in experimental petrology. It's quite important how you design it, because you should make experiment in the way you control everything. So you try to have just one variable at a time. You either change the temperature, or you change the pressure, or you change the shape, or you change the material. You kind of want to limit things which can vary independently and just focus on one impact of one thing on another. So you have this then independent and dependent variables of your experiments. And then let's talk about theories, because theories are actually something that, based on the theory, can make predictions. And they have to be consistent beyond the reasonable doubt. We have a gravitational theory, we have Big Bang theory, we have evolution theory, we have atomic theory. And all these things are so well documented that based on them, you can make prediction, and though prediction, when tested, are proven right. And one of examples could be discovery of Neptune, 1846, where scientists found that Uranus' orbit has some kind of inconsistency, and that there has to be another gravitational object in the vicinity of that planet to create this resonance. And they made calculations, all the smart people gathered, started using math, started using all the laws and all the equations, which was developed through scientific methods, and boom, they pointed the telescope to the sky, and there was a planet. So this is amazing, and this is something I'm missing for the flat earthers. Like, where is your Neptune moment? If you're so sure about it, create a theory which can make predictions. Well, when you test it, it proves you exactly that, what you expected. And let's talk about laws. Laws are summary of observations. So if you would like to have it grouped, you kind of have, of course, you start with observation, you build your hypothesis, and from those hypotheses, you do experiments, which you test it, and then you develop theory. It's kind of, this is a pipeline. And my problem with flat earth, and then I also watched this Behind the Curve documentary. We watched it actually together, Tika, when we were still in doing masters.
Yeah.
Do you remember, how did it end?
It ended with the psychologist actually talking about how to not be so excluding. Right?
Yes, there was, but also there was this very important moment which kind of closes right now. Then I would say I will close the narrative about scientific methods, because they designed an experiment, empirical experiment, and that was like, okay, these guys are clearly onto something. Let's watch. And then they made this experiment when they said that we will put a pole with a laser from one.
True. I remember this.
Yeah, from point A to point B. So like in a flat Earth, the laser from point A to point B through the point, let's say, I don't know, C, would travel through. On the curved Earth or like spherical Earth, you would not be able to do that because the blinding at that height would just cover the laser beam.
Yeah, it wouldn't go
And
through.
It wouldn't go through. And what they did, they kind of proved that the Earth is sphere, but they refused to accept that because they performed this experiment and it didn't went through, and then they lowered the pole and then like magically went through, and I was like, oh, interesting. And I was like, what is interesting? That the Earth is sphere? You just proved that. This is you literally created like experiment, you collected the data, and the conclusion should be the Earth is round. But they refuse.
They
And
did
this is
so well up until like the end, like the last step.
just draw the conclusion, and they go again contradictory to their own principal rule. Believe only what you saw with your own eyes, with the data you only you collected by yourself. They did that, and they still refused. So this is literally just not science. And of course, big impact also has the confirmation bias, and something which probably you know, Tika. It's a Dunning-Kruger effect. You know that?
Not by name.
Okay, when you listen to these guys, they use a lot of sophisticated nomenclature trying to pose themselves as an experts while they have a very little knowledge on the actual topic. And this Dunning-Kruger effect is a bias that describes tendency of people with a low ability in a specific area to give very assertive, positive statements of this ability. So it's like the more you know, the less you're sure.
Yeah, it's like you don't know what you don't know, and therefore you're confident in what you think you know. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's another like phrase like, only because you don't understand something, it doesn't mean it's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And but like let's move on to this bias, the cognitive bias, how our brain works. If there's let's say, group of people which are more tend towards those conspirational thinking, do you think, Tika, there is a type of people who are more prone to be conspirational theorists, or everyone can fall for it?
I think in theory everyone can fall for it, but I think people are more susceptible to misinformation for some reasons. I think if you're, for example, less high IQ, or it's just an assumption, right? It's just what I'm thinking of. If you have, it's easier to convince someone if they don't know much, or if their reasoning skills are a bit lower,
So you would say the trait would be more like less educated people.
Yeah.
Okay, but right now let's remove the flat Earth. Let's focus on people who are with tendencies for conspirational minds, like everything coming from 9/11 was a scam to government is run by lizards, lizard people, and whatever. It must be said that there are conspiracies which have been proven correct, right? Which have been proven right. Like, I don't know, medical experiments on indigenous people.
True.
So, like, we always have to think, am I crazy or is there something? There was a very interesting study. I'm going to link it. And they were trying to see if there are any traits. Again, like, this is right now, I'm just kind of briefing you about the paper because I'm not a psychologist. I was just curious. It was kind of natural progression when I was doing research for this episode, to kind of understand if there is a type of people which was more susceptible for conspiracies. And the study found that people with abnormal personality traits tend to believe in conspirational thinking more. And these types of abnormal personality traits are paranoid, schizotype, odd thinking pattern, referencing everything is about me, and very important and very interesting, narcissism.
Oh, this is cool. Tell me more.
Okay. They also tried to find if there's like a normal personality traits, like being introvert or extrovert correlation, but there was not so strong correlation like it was when you have the abnormal personality traits. And I'm not saying right now, and I'm not diagnosing anyone, disclaimer, I'm not diagnosing anyone right now, but there is correlation between conspirational thinking and having those abnormal personality traits, which doesn't mean that every flat earther is a narcissist. But there's also this why behind believing in these things, and they state 3 motives. The need of understanding one's environment, which I think is pretty standard. Everyone wants to understand how the
Very
world
natural.
works. Very natural. This is how religion was born. This is how science was born. This is a kind of natural curiosity of like understanding your environment. A need to feel secure. Very normal, very natural, I would say. And then need to maintain a superior but fragile image of yourself in a group. So you have kind of this social motive, the individualism of narcissism, this special recognitions like, oh, look at, I'm so clever, I'm so unique.
Yeah, I'm the only one that gets it right. I'm the only one that understands this conspiracy.
You're all sheeps. This is me who figured the shit out.
Yeah.
I'm so smart. That's, the government wants to screw me over. Everything is about me. Abnormal personality trait, but also very narcissistic. Then you have this epistemic motive. So like over relying on your intuition. Also discarding a huge bodies of research, seeing patterns when there are no patterns, and then like trying to find simple answer to complex problems. And one of the things I found it very interesting, that it also gives these people instant like rewarding, like instant dopamine bust. You get into the loop because like, whoa, this is so interesting, going down the spiral. It's like everyone does that. I did that sometimes or Reddit, going down the spiral about certain topics, but they take it to the extreme, right? So there's a clear picture of certain type of person who either is very insecure, who is either could be a bit more paranoid. There was also a statement that these people went through something traumatic. Also, the bigger the event, the higher the chance there will be conspiracy about it. 9/11, some big, hurricane in US, right? It was caused by the government. The bigger the trauma, your brain kind of probably wants to cover it with conspiracy because it's just easier to explain than simply.
Yeah, and it's easier to point to someone to blame. I think this whole phenomenon is super interesting because these people, they are trying to find community in a way that is not helpful to society, but still the urge to want to find community is very valid. So
We
I
want
kind
to
of
belong.
yeah. So I kind of understand in a way, and I think we need to be nicer to each other to help these people come back or help us understand each other better, so we don't alienate from each other so horribly. Even though it's sometimes very hard not to be rude
and not to make fun of these people.
Yeah, and it really is. And I fall in this pit all the time. This is a trap you never get rid of because we all have our preconceptions, our beliefs.
These people are not necessarily stupid people. Some of these people are probably very educated people. They just have very strong distrust. And it would be nice to earn their trust back and show them that you don't need to be alienating yourself or distrusting everything. And now, my favorite part of the podcast, I found this study. It's a large language model for debunking conspiracies. So if you know someone, if our listeners know someone who is really deep into conspiracies, there is this beautiful tool which was developed by Thomas Costello, at American University with Gordon Pennycock of Cornell University and David G. Rand at MIT. And these guys, I'm in awe because they developed Debunkbot and I tested it and it's super interesting. So you can open website which is like ChatGPT. So first it's gonna ask you question about your preferable conspiracy theory. The way they state it, it's also like not makes you think that you're crazy, which is very important. Like the bot really tests your belief and it really frames it like this. When you open the Debunkbot, this is a survey of MIT scientific research, and then you click continue, and then you have that throughout history various theories have emerged that suggest certain significant event or situation are the results of secret plans by individual or groups. These theories often offer alternative explanation for events than those that are widely accepted by the public or presented by official sources. Some people call these conspiracy theories. Reflecting on this, are there any specific such theories that you find particularly credible or compelling? The wording, the compassion is so well constructed for these people. And then
so
you can...
neutral.
So neutral.
Yeah.
Then you can, I type flat earth, right? And then it's great that you're thinking critically about the world and questioning assumptions. It just starts with very compelling way of comparing a flat earth, a curved earth. You can talk with it. You can exchange your concerns. Great. And it has certain advantage over talking with people because often scientists and people like me and you, we get frustrated. We tend towards mockery and all these things. It's not there. It's just pure facts. No need for this debate techniques. This bot, since it's LLM, has unlimited access to information. Conspiracy theorists will come to you with the most obscure fact, and the bot will know it in a second because it's a bot.
Yeah, and because it has the whole internet like behind it.
Also, it stays on the topic. It doesn't diverge. There's also no Gish-Gallop effect. You know what is a Gish-Gallop?
I listened to this podcast you sent me, but it's
Yeah.
just overflowing with many facts, right?
Yeah, you kind of bombard people with so many facts that going around them and debunking them one after another creates just more and more and more opportunity for that person to be, discredited. This bot, since it's LLM, they harvest the information of that person. They use the wording of that person. You get questioned about, I don't know, climate. It only works on flat earth. The bot will give you only the climate information. Beautiful. I know about this bot because of the podcast I really like. You Are Not So Smart. Amazing podcast. And I think this fits perfectly to this episode. And also, if you're struggling with your loved one who is very much into conspiracies, maybe that person needs to talk to a bot, or you need to talk to a bot to learn how to talk with that person. It's also a nice tool for that.
Yeah, it's beautiful research, beautiful piece of equipment made.
I think one of the most important findings of the Debunkbot is that it has a very high percentage of people questioning their beliefs. It's 20%.
Wow.
20% less believing in whatever you were believing before. That's huge.
Yeah.
20% can literally flip you from being a flat earther to being spherical.
You make it sound so appealing.
Come to a happy bubble. So yeah, these guys are really onto something. I'm also very much amazed how you can use AI and larger language model to literally change the world for better. My boyfriend, he works with LLM. He did the PhD on that with like detection of propaganda. You can have so many applications for important topics, and debunking conspiracy theories, detection of propaganda. I think this is where the future really needs to focus, because this is gonna be a new way of harvesting people's minds and votes and opinions. And, it's easier to manipulate people who are susceptible to manipulation. And the moment you start questioning everything with facts, this is a hope for better future.
And trust your own critical thinking skills.
Yes.
If you please develop them. It's one of the best skills to have, and lean on yourself in
And
that way.
if you don't know how to develop critical thinking, talk to the bot. It really explains it in a very simplistic way without making you feel stupid, which I think is also quite important.
Yeah. So thank you, Veronica, for going down this spiral, taking us with it.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Tika, for being there for me.
Always.
And we hear you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.